Welcome to Don't Everybody Leave. Say howdy to Mac King.
Howdy, I am Mac King. Welcome to Don't Everybody Leave. I'm very excited. We have an excellent guest today. One of my favorite shows that I've ever seen in Las Vegas, the Misbehaved game show, and we have the Behave. And we have Goudeau laughing in the background. And let's bring those fellas up.
Another dynamic intro there, Mac.
Yeah.
We have.
I'm dynamic as fuck.
Is there a way to get that, since you're going to go back to doing shows at some point this year, can we get that on your billboard?
Dynamic as fuck.
But no, in the first person, I'm dynamic as fuck for the next couple.
I think putting it in quotes and then putting your name at the bottom of it.
Yeah, dynamic as fuck, Mac King.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
That's Jason England, Jacob Jax, Michael Goudeau, Vinny Grosso, and Nick Diffatte is missing in action. We do not know. And you had a theory, Jacob, as to where he was.
Yeah, well, I know we do a section usually at the beginning of these shows about people that are important to us who have died, and I actually do know what happened to Nick.
Nick is important to us.
Yeah, so he used to, with his pal Butch, do train robberies for a long time, but the law kind of started to catch up with him, so they went to Bolivia with Sundance's girlfriend, and eventually the entire Bolivian army surrounded him and Butch in this small.
Is he
casita.
In this imaginary sequence? Is he Butch or Sundance? Because you've called him both.
Don't accept the eulogy. That's rule number one.
Nick's fine.
We never really saw what happened to him.
Don't know where Nick is.
Last time we saw him, there was a really cinematic freeze frame and a lot of gunshots. So I hope he's okay. Anyway, back to you.
So let's see. In addition to Nick Diffatte, this is going to be history if Nick is dead. I got a couple of others. One,
Thank
everybody
goodness.
knows. Everybody knows. Not everybody knows Nick Diffatte, but everybody knows Yaphet Kotto, right?
Sure. I didn't know that.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Damn.
Deader than Nick.
There he
is.
There's Yaphet Kotto in Live and Let Die, so it's literal.
Yeah, keep that up there, Nikki, because one of the things I was looking at that photo, how intense he is, and the one behind him is fantastic. But the little bracelets that are holding Roger Moore to that chair, look how easy it would be to get out of that.
He can't because he has such an expensive watch.
I would like to say Roger Moore also dead, and in the background, the wonderful Dr. Quinn medicine woman, Jane Seymour, still alive and kicking.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. That was her first movie ever. She played the Bond girl in Live and Let Die. Her
Jacob,
name was
who's
Solitaire.
all the way to the left?
That is the henchman for Yaphet Kotto, and please leave me alone.
I like that they match their clothing. That's pretty snazzy.
Yeah, and he was, he was in Alien, and
just a wonderful actor, and he has the best Bond villain death of any Bond villain in that movie. They put an air tube.
I don't remember how he dies. What does he do?
They put a hydraulic air tube in his mouth, I think, and he gets blown up to be like a giant balloon, and then he explodes. But really, they cut to him, and he's like, like the girl in Willy Wonka, and then
wow. So it's like the shark in Jaws.
Oh, have you heard of this, Mac? A Kentucky meat shower?
He did that at his bachelor party, I think.
This is on Wikipedia. The Kentucky meat shower was chunks of red meat measuring approximately 2 by 2, and it was a group of vultures. Vultures regurgitated their meals after being startled into taking flight. Were you aware of the Kentucky meat shower?
I shot the gun that startled the vultures.
Back in 1876.
Yeah, I shot my blunderbuss.
I've heard that about you.
Mac Musket King. That's
when
what we call him.
Misbehaved comes on, I'm going to shoot my blunderbuss again.
All right.
Who's the other person that died?
This is one that no one will have heard of, I don't think. And I'm not even sure how to pronounce Lou's last name. I believe his name is Lou Ottens, or it could be Otens. There's a picture of Lou.
Oh, yeah. He invented the tape cassette.
Cassette tape.
Yeah, he invented the cassette tape.
Wow.
And he was also involved in the invention of the compact disc to put himself out of business.
So here's an interesting question.
So like when Blockbuster had the chance to buy Netflix, this guy actually pulled the trigger and jumped in on the next technology.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Blockbuster was like, mailing people DVDs, what a dumb idea.
Yeah. Yep. 50 million. It was available to them for $50 million, which is, I believe, what they make an hour now.
I believe there's one Blockbuster left in the world. I think that's right. Yeah.
So here's a question. Does everybody here remember what the first cassette tape they bought was? I remember mine. Yeah. So mine was an album called Even Worse. Well, Even Worse is a Weird Al Yankovic album, and the cover is a parody of Michael Jackson's Bad. It's him wearing a suit with buckles all over it. So that was the first cassette I had.
So the first cassettes I bought, I got like a dozen cassettes at the same time because I joined one of those record clubs when I was a kid.
So they got your penny.
I remember that I got a Cher album. And so I remember that one. I got the Best of Three Dog Night.
Yeah.
And the only other one I remember was Sly and the Family Stone's Greatest Hits.
So I believe the most important question though is, aren't they still sending those to you?
I still get a few every month, and I can send one. Yeah, I keep the ones I want. It's fantastic.
I have no idea what my first cassette was, but my first album was a gift from someone else, and it was Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brass, and the girl with the whipped cream dress.
Oh, the whipped cream all over her.
Oh, yep. There.
That right there is a framed copy of the first album I ever bought with my own money. And this one, and it's signed by Otis from the Temptations. Thanks to my good friend Jacob Jax for introducing me to Otis.
Yeah, nice thing.
Just so you know, I told him to write "love." He doesn't actually love you.
Kind of funny that you brought up the very first cassette that you bought, because I actually still have mine. It's this. Yeah, I bought that probably in 1986, something like that. Whenever I first got a cassette player, I had records, 45s and 33 long plays before that. So when I finally got a cassette deck, I bought that, and I still have it. And it's the only one I still have because it's impossible to find that. So just a little collector's item. I kept it all these years and never knew you guys were going to bring this up, but it was sitting on the other side of the room.
You may be the only one who has the last cassette that they ever owned also.
Yeah, possibly.
So I got invited to the opening of the Misbehaved show at Bally's. I went a little bit reluctantly, worried that it would be a bunch of drunk people screaming, and it was that,
and so much more,
and we will talk about that. Please welcome the star of that show, Misbehave herself.
Yay!
Yay! Good morning and hello. So, I would not have enjoyed that show had it been what I feared, a bunch of drunk assholes screaming. But the chaos that you're able to create in that show is, it's there's something behind it. It sounds corny to say, but it grows into something profound and life-affirming and beautiful, and I can't say enough good things about it. And
well, that's lovely.
so thanks for joining us here. This is going to be less life-affirming and less beautiful.
Really.
Possibly soul crushing.
So the fact of the matter is, and people always get scared about that show because they go, oh, but I'll have to run up on stage and I'll be made to do. No, if I just want to watch that shit, I can watch it. If I want to get engaged, I can get engaged, etc. I mean, and I find that because there's the freedom to do whatever you want or not, that's where you manage to get people, bring them in, because you're like, I'll let that idiot jump up, strip off naked, and get a point for our team, shall we? But I've done high-end variety for hundreds of years. So sort of Le Clique, Le Soiree, Absinthe, that was me. And then when I was putting on my own stuff, I got so fed up of getting let down by production that I thought, what happens if you do the opposite? What if you remove all necessary, no tech needed, I'll do it. No production values, I'll go the other way, but the attention to detail remains the same.
Nice.
And,
That's the key to it when you say the attention to detail remains the same, because when you walk in there, you think, oh, it's this hodgepodge of stuff. And then you quickly realize that, oh my gosh, this is so well thought out and this is so layered and fantastic that you get hooked into it.
I mean, I did have a serious, I think most people who have small shows in Vegas have this learning curve, but I had a severe learning curve, which it became about conversation and kindness. It wasn't in London. It still had all that same stuff, but it was more aggressive because, London and 700 people is. But suddenly with 12 people who didn't really like what I am and what this is, we can have a conversation that goes on. By the end of the show, we all understand I was right.
Who taught you how to deal with those tiny crowds, Amy?
Yeah.
I'm just curious.
There are several lessons within there, but one, I have to say, just before I get into how small Mac King's crowds are, it was actually, I used to do street performing, and I was a pretty good street performer, but a small circle street performer. And in Covent Garden on the main pitch, I only ever died. I died. And the reason I did was because I refused to do what I call the skinny line. 4 people, please clap and cheer madly for me and look like an idiot so I can make my little show. I just couldn't do it. And in Bally's, I learned how to do that. I think it was just about the content.
Michael Goudeau and Jacob Jax have both had quite a bit of experience street performing.
Street shows also, yeah.
What did your street show consist of?
Oh Christ! I mean, for a very long time.
Well, that seems like that should have drawn a crowd.
and yet nothing. And yet nothing. So my street show used to be me blowing a glove up on my head, getting 2 dudes out of the audience and doing a banana dance with them, and doing a sack escape. And my God, when I say I was the worst, I'm the worst magician in the world. Like, it was a rigged lock. I still got stuck in it sometimes. The reason it was sack, not a straitjacket, was because I kept ending with the straitjacket on my head like a fucking wig. And it's just not the good look at the end of your finale. And then
you should have gotten Roger Moore's restraints.
Even then, I think I'd have had problems, do you know? And then I'd get out of the sack in a different costume and swallow a sword.
And you do? Can I give away?
Swallow a sword takes some practice. Swallow a sword is a real deal, right? I mean, sword swallowing. Yeah, that's a real.
Yeah. I learned pretty early on that the difference, and I love street magic, by the way. So Nick Nicholas was real helpful to me early on. Gazzo's a good mate, So I love cups and balls, and I love the sort of corner hustle. But I knew very quickly I can't fool people. I'm not, I'm not that way wired. And so even if I could learn the magic, lazy bitch, I'm not going to.
But she and I have a street show connection, which is that I street performed for a long time here in Las Vegas, and I street performed in front of a billboard for the Misbehaved game show.
Oh,
And
did
people
you?
People would take photos of me, and then they would tag me in them when they would put them up on social media. And all the comments, none of them would be, "We saw this magician; he was great." They'd be like, "That show looks awesome. What is that show?" I was like, "Cool."
I wish I'd known we'd had a billboard.
How did you discover Game Show then? How did that happen?
I just went, fuck it. I'm going to go to Adelaide. I'm going to go to a little sideshow tent, and I want to have a dick around with something. And I know I want it to involve phones, because I got really annoyed with the fact that performers kept saying, "Put your phones away, put your phones on silent," or whatever. And then they'd go off stage and get on their phone. And I thought, we have changed, move with it, because this is hypocrisy from an MC. And it's, just why? I did 5 sideshows in one night, and I came back said to my friend, "Well, that's not working. I'm not enjoying that at all. We are not allowed to go to bed until I figure out what I'm doing tomorrow." And he said, after about 10 beers, he was like, "What about a game show?" And then we just went, that. Yeah, divide them based on their phones. Oh my God. And I went in the next day, did that. Within a 15-minute, guys, in a set, the grand prize at that point was you got to throw rubbish at me, which I had to drop this bit in Bally's. I love this bit. You got to throw rubbish at me while I danced. That was the grand prize. It was really, really stupid, and it worked immediately. So this was a bit where I went, I'm going to do exactly what I want as I see it. And it's all of the messages are what I think, for sure. So it's bizarre because I haven't performed it for so long, but like, don't ask, don't get, and use your initiative. And it was the first time I'd ever gotten a conduit, which allowed me to just be me. And prior to that, I had been this sword swallowing, tongue piercing, table swallowing, sort of dominatrix in red latex clown. And although it was fun and I could do it well, it required me being drunk as fuck. And when I looked back on it, I realized it sort of embarrassed me. It's sort of,
Yes, but I believe now Jacob wants to ask you if he can trademark red latex wearing clown.
You can even have this one, Jake. How about crowd dominatrix? There you go.
Oh yeah, clown. Yes, I'm sorry, I left out dominatrix too. Yeah.
And hang on a minute. Where was it? I would like to trademark Kentucky meat shower, because where I'm from, that means something very different.
No, anything. My rule is
it
anything
means something different in Kentucky too.
I imagine.
What's table swallowing?
I'm a lazy sword swallower, and I'm also not in America, right? So there was less. Europe had far less of them, and less of a tradition. Like there's the sideshow tradition of a sword swallowing act here, I think goes back a long time. In the UK, you have it, but it's not as prevalent. So I had my sword, and then after I'd done Le Soirée Le Clique for a year, I thought, something else would suit this room better. And I came up with the idea of swallowing a table leg. So I got a table made. I mean, I wouldn't put a lot of stuff on it. So it's a delicate table and I have a blue tablecloth on it and a tray on that and a bottle and a glass on that. And I will come out and I can sort of wrap up all my little audience journeys, drinking their beers, replacing their drinks that I've taken, blah, 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 while smoking a cigar, put the cigar out on my tongue, drink the bottle of wine, the glass of wine, and then do a tablecloth pull, and then swallow one table leg, all to my way, which is nice and large. It's a really nice special act. And that felt just like it was a number. It's a silent number that works in and of itself, bang. And then that's me sword swallowing, done. Although now I do want to get my world record back. Not that it was mine. Edith Clifford still holds it. I would like to break Edith Clifford, who I think is the most famous female sword swallower of all time. She set the record at 18. She was in the 1800s. Guinness World Records got in touch with me in the early 2000s because I'm old. And they said, "Hey, do you want to set the world record for most swords swallowed by a woman?" I said, "Well, no, because Edith Clifford did that in the 1800s." They said, "Oh, we're getting rid of some of the records." Okay, so this doesn't matter if, great publicity. Sure, I'll set it at 5. And so I then went on TV, and I'd actually managed to nick my larynx the day before. So I went on TV, and it was fantastic TV. Got to flirt with one of my favorite soccer footballers, who was hosting the show, and also accidental tension with live TV. I knew these were going down one way or the other. My throat said otherwise, and the audience were freaked out. So it was great TV. And then I did the Guinness World Record circuit, which is hysterical.
It's great.
And I broke it with 6. Yeah, exactly. Right. I met the guy. I met the guy that had the world record for most world records.
Yeah. See, I met it. I went to the airport with a guy who pulled a taxi with his mustache, because he didn't speak enough of the local language of Italian to get himself to the airport. So I'm taking this giant orange-faced man.
Well, the last time I did it was for their 50th, and I broke my record. So I went from 5 to 6 to 7.
Right.
Can you see a theme? I was like, I can milk this for years.
Exactly.
Anyway, so when I did the 50th, there's an act I've done once here in Vegas. I only now get to do it once a year because it gives me concussion. And it's headbutting the living shit out of a watermelon. It is hands down the most satisfying act I've ever done. The reason I got the idea for this act was because on the 50th anniversary, they had a guy on from Spain, and he was setting the world record for most watermelons headbutted in a minute.
I may have done the show with him at one point.
Right, and I loved it. I mean, so I watched this and I went, that looks like fun. Oh my God, that's amazing. So I spoke to him afterwards and I said, where did you come up with the idea? And he said, actually, I saw a German fellow try it. And what happened was he hadn't checked their ripeness. So the first one, and he was out.
Like a bowling ball.
So it's an act I very much enjoy doing, but I got home from one show having done it, and I sat there and I thought, here's a game. How long is it going to take for you to think this sentence through to the you've got to stop doing this now?
So I have an unrelated question. You don't happen to have a watermelon there now, do you?
I don't. I've got a few pieces of pineapple, if that would help.
Perfect.
And I understood it. It was a rhythm thing. There was a pacing and a rhythm that is very different with that. And
who's getting the text tone in the middle of this great story?
That's Amy. Yeah, if you can put it on vibrate, that'd be
it's a computer. I don't know how to turn the computer off with it. See, it's all those desktop things. I'm sorry. Yes, indeed.
I agree with you. About how hypocritical it is to have people turn off their phones, but.
And what Mac can do, so for me, it's being able to control the environment, even if it's not ideal. And the Harrah's showroom is actually lovely. The lights are nice as well.
Yeah,
it's tricky, but I mean, the Harrah's is, I like that showroom, but I don't have the control that you had at Bally's, because I mean, I'm third on the list. I mean, there's, the Righteous Brothers at 6, and then somebody else at 10. So, and I'm third on the list of who gets to decide what's in that, what that room looks like.
I would have had a problem with how white those LEDs are.
Right.
It takes something so magical away from me. It's the same as the volume on Fremont Street Experience. I just sort of go, if there's any way you could just turn it down a bit, everything. Or directional sound speakers. Like, I love the street performing. I think the funniest thing I've ever seen as a sort of a statue type thing is Tupac and a junkie Dave Chappelle having a chat together. I mean, I died and went to heaven that day. And you don't see that anywhere else. I mean, my favorite part of Vegas is, you know, downtown in the Fremont Street Experience, because the whole of life is there and it's free.
The whole of life
Great new show
and
there,
Vinny
too.
Grosso.
You know, everything's here, baby. You know, Bob and Margaret are here. That drag queen from New York's here. I always over there. Love it. Tour it. You know.
I used to perform next to a woman who was dressed as Marilyn Monroe had she lived.
When I was in Ringling Brothers Circus in 1980, the acrobats, every acrobat act in the circus thought all they needed was the right costumes and they would be in Vegas. And every year they spent more and more money on rhinestones and glitter and thinking that they were getting closer to Vegas. And then I showed up in a suit. So,
But one of the things I was struck by, I mean, there's many of the things there were many things, but it seemed like, and this could be an illusion, but it seemed like it was a complete two-person operation, right?
Apart from it was one person. Yes, it was a two-person operation.
Yeah, I mean, you and Tiffany, right?
Yeah.
And it seemed like between the two of you, you were running the lights and the sound and anything. And that could, like I said, there could be somebody else that I don't know.
I would arrange the chairs based on the crowd. So I would actually do the room. Then I would do the lights were very basic, so that's why that worked and easily. And then yes, I would do all the sound. And the reason I would do all the sound is because it has to be done then, and they would, and it was by design. So when I was doing, and name drop because why not? When I was doing the Sydney Opera House, that same operation. So you have slightly more complex plot cue, but they are lighting cues. But basically, that you're going this state for half an hour, then an act, and we've got more lights to play within the act. So great, this state again. But all of the sound I would do.
But it seemed like there was, an iPad on a tripod on stage, and that was, it's like,
yeah.
So it wasn't even secret. That was one of the things I liked.
No.
It wasn't somebody in the wings operating it. It was,
I think that adds to it though, because when you have a setting, and then you have all this crazy music going on, and it feels overproduced for what it is. So it's a way to have all that music and not have it feel overproduced and have it feel organic and real.
Mm. And it also has to be organic and real in the sense that although here's the palette of buttons I've got, I might not play that one tonight, and you won't know that. I'm reading this crowd. Right. I'm reading this room. Yeah. So I know that actually they're not up for the Ace of Base Nazis joke tonight.
Right.
That was definitely by design. And it's, again, it speaks to the attention to detail because you can see everything. There are no mistakes.
Right.
If that often happened, if the iPad crashes, I can hold it. I can probably hold this crowd without music for 10 minutes within this rhythm of the show. Is it fixed yet? Is it fixed yet? But and in that respect, it's very much, I think, like crowd work emceeing and
but there's crowd work with the people that are there, but there's also, there's shit going on with people's phones in their hands too.
The rest of it is just the freedom and the pointing out and the dividing. Because what I learned, that was just beautiful. I hadn't known, and I learned in this first show I ever did, how competitive people were. It took me by surprise for a hot second, and I went, okay. Well,
I once got to the show like towards the end of seating, and they put me on the Android side instead of I was like, wait, no, I belong on the iPhone side.
But it's interesting as well, though, because within the arbitrariness of how you can win anyway, I remember having a fella in London, and this was a sort of 700 capacity show. So it was like heaving mob night as opposed to that sort of bouncy feel. And he'd been to the show before. I didn't know that. And it was the Do Anything. He'd gotten up on the stage prior, somewhere in the middle of the show, and he was just on the stage doing this. And sort of watched him and gave him a point, let him carry on with it for a bit, and then crowds started really enjoying him, and then more people started getting up to join him, and then by the end there was a full stage full of people all doing that. He was getting tired now, also playing to the crowd. Then a guy jumped up, stripped off naked, looked a lot like Jesus, got into the middle of them, and that sort of just...
How many times have you seen Jesus naked, by the way?
Well, at this point, I mean, quite a lot. So he then, the naked guy kind of dispersed everybody else. This guy was still there, just going much slower now. And the audience were loving him. And he understood that it wasn't about having a trick. It was just about being with us somehow. And it was like, you'd get a lot of that. And I loved it, where it's like so little, you know, you'd have people doing back somersaults or whatever, doing tricks. But when you've just got someone clapping under their leg. I mean,
no, but I mean, that's one of the other things for me. You know, there's a lot of audience participation in my show, and you know, I want to be
not anymore.
I refuse to believe that's gone for good. If it's gone for good,
I refuse to.
Everything has changed.
I'm more and more optimistic about it coming back sooner. Actually,
I will be able to lick ahead in 2022.
I think in 4 months. Actually, that's what I think.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't base that on anything other than my hope. But what I was going to say is, you know, I mean, I feel like there's not tricks, but maybe you have some tricks for getting people to do what they wouldn't ordinarily do in front of people.
I genuinely believe is you unpeel. They do that. The only trick in that is that they don't.
You don't feel like you have anything to do with it? Any way to set up a safe place for them to do that? Or I mean,
well, I rile them up and I make them competitive. They do naturally kind of want to win against whoever is opposite them in the room, and and on a good show particularly, they become a team within that. But I genuinely believe the reason they unpeel is because they are allowed to be who they are, but in public. So I know who I am. After a little while of doing the show, I understood who I am. I'm the objector. I'm someone who will always ask a question. I'm not an exhibitionist. I don't like necessarily jumping above the parapet, but if I have a question, you better be able to fucking answer it. And I know that person in the show. I see them. I understand them very well because it's me. Then there are the exhibitionists. Then there are boring white girls. Then there's the guy that's really not enjoying himself, and then he hears that song and he realizes he hasn't been bothered at all, and this is his moment to stand up. And there's the shy people who actually right at the end feel liberated, and it's just them being them in this bizarre setting. And that's what I found. I mean, the key is you don't have to do anything, because if I went to a show where I had to do something, I will not be there.
Jason, in the past, I've had many audience participatory things in my act. And early on, when I first started doing it, I felt like I want to pick the people, right? And if they say no, I would sort of make them or do my best to make them, because I felt like if they say no, then the next person that I ask is going to think, oh, that person knew something I don't know. And so I'm going to say no too. And so if you start with one no, but then I changed over the years to feel like, hey, if you don't want to, I think that's completely valid, and I'm not going to make you. And so I've come to the other side of that.
And you have a very nice style to where it's really done casually. So it's as what I'm doing as one can when you require someone.
Also, Mac does something that I think is brilliant and overlooked by a lot of magicians that see his show. Is the first person that comes on stage is brought to the stage in steps. You know, first it's hold the rope up. Well, anybody can do that. You know, then it's stand up. Well, that's still a very safe place to be. And that's still not high enough. You're going to have to come up on the stage. And by that time, they're already standing, and they've survived that. And so I've seen the show a million times, and I've never seen anyone resist from that point. I'm sure Matt can tell you if they have. But then, after
they have.
Yeah. Well, after that, though, they realize, hey, that person with the rope trick was brought up on stage, and she survived. So
I'm hoping it's not even that. Yeah, I hope it's more than she survived. I hope the idea is that they go, he was nice to her.
Right.
Well, she's safe up there. Yeah.
Speaking of requiring people to do magic, Mac, I think you should require Misbehaved to do a card trick with you.
Though, do you have any idea? Some magicians know how I feel about card tricks, but do you kids know how I feel about card tricks?
Didn't you just learn you're not allowed to force her into anything?
Well, no,
that's why I think we should.
With you, Mac, but this is where I come from with card tricks, and I've said this to every magician I've known. I will always be happy to see a card trick if it is relevant to the evening I'm having. So whenever I am playing poker, you can show me a fucking card trick. But if not, how about a drink trick, or a cigarette trick, or a pen trick, a computer trick, or a piece of paper trick? And
we're not going to do a card trick.
You guys must be familiar with Burt Wonderstone.
Sure.
Of course.
Oh, yeah.
God.
We had a Mac Show field trip. Everybody who works for the show, when that premiered, we all went.
I loved that. I thought that was so funny. So well done. So funny. Does that sit with you? I mean, did it resonate for you? It resonated for me, is what I found.
Well, you'll notice that just like Burt Wonderstone in the movie, Mac has a painting of himself behind him.
Are you talking about the Billy the Mime?
Yeah,
Other side.
They're all you, really.
They're all me.
Yeah.
Mac, do you require Jennifer to sign a contract before you sleep with her?
Like a non-disclosure?
Yeah.
Oh, we'll cut that out. Okay. There are two things I wanted to say on the street performing thing and the volunteer thing. One is I have been at the Matt King show when somebody did not want to come up on stage. Only once, and I've been a lot. But it was really beautiful to see because you walked into the audience and you went up to a guy and you said, "Hello, what's your name?" And he said, "No." And you went, "Yeah, I don't blame you." And you kept walking. I mean, just that's how little you pushed him on it,
I always feel like I'm trying to measure when I get chosen for a trick, I'm trying to measure how much should I do to get a laugh and not. So I will allow myself one laugh and then I will shut up and be their assistant.
The best volunteer I ever had, and it was back at this festival I love, Christchurch. So it was outdoor. It built up over the years where it's just the best clowns playing outdoors, and it was run fairly. It was wonderful. So these nighttime shows would be 5 of us, and you'd be playing to 2,000 incredibly performance literate audience who would they're happy for you to do the material, but just fly, please. That's what they wanted. And the volunteer I had to tie me up he was just so chipper. I went, "Jesus Christ, are you a children's entertainer?" And he just turned to the crowd and went, "Yes, I am." And had a ball. I mean, it was so much fun because he understood my relationship with that. And the audience understood, it was layered and funny, and we got to be ourselves real loud.
Goudeau, will you tell her you used to do one of my favorite crowd building techniques with a bowling ball way back in the day? You couldn't do it now.
I couldn't do it now. I had a bowling ball that I had written "bomb" on the side of with white letters and a long fuse, and I would just light it and stand on stage and wait. And people would come and sit and watch. Brilliant. And then it was time for the show. I'd take out a pair of scissors and just snip the fuse off and let's go do the show.
Oh, are you sure one couldn't do that now? That's hysterical.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's odd, isn't it? But I have to say, I demand the right to lick heads again, or we're not back to where
I have a friend who, when he was here in Vegas, had it in his contract that he was not allowed to lick anyone's head because he had done it so many times. His name was Peter Pitofsky, very funny clown.
Can I lick your head? I want to lick your head. Can I lick your head? Wait, there's too much hair there. I sent away for that one.
And at Mad Hatton, the show that was down on the strip there, they put it in his contract. You are not allowed to lick heads anymore.
I mean, no. The one that gets me that I can't do actually on the gross out area, because I know I came in through sort of Sideshow and gross out, but I've never managed to do, and it gets me going every time I see someone do it, particularly on the street. It's the foot in the mouth. I love it. But I find it very effective for me, but I would not be able to do it myself. Like any other bodily
put in your own mouth? Is that what you mean?
I often do that one. No, it's when you get someone, you take their shoe off and their sock off, and then you put a stranger's foot in your own mouth.
Yeah.
That's the one I can't do.
So that's going to be, by the way, that's going to be the little gift that we use to promote this show. It's going to be you doing it.
Well, this is a true story. For a very long time, I used to be known as that. So people would go, Amy. Oh, you know Amy.
Yeah.
Occasionally,
Amy.
Amy, which Amy? Amy.
Oh yeah, that Amy. Yeah.
Just giving you some GIF options.
Good.
It's I think that an audience is completely allowed to be no fuck off, because that wasn't the contract they entered into.
Yeah. Right.
You know, and it's the same when people get annoyed about, I don't know, maybe a bad TripAdvisor review or a bad press review or something. You're like, I know it's not nice, and I'm sorry if it was, if it feels unfair, but we step on stage and we get judged. It's amazing how people sort of duck out of that.
Yeah, that's what you're asking them to do, and then they did it, and you're mad at them. You can be disappointed, but you can't be mad that they. It's like John Lennon used to say that about, because he was famous in New York after the Beatles broke up. Anybody that wanted to talk to him when he was walking around, he would stop, sign autographs, take pictures.
And I really get off on that. And occasionally people ask for autograph or just want to shake hands is the coolest one that happens, which is cool with me. And I'm just known enough to keep my ego floating, but unknown enough to get around.
And other performers would go, "How doesn't that get annoying? Why do you do that?" And he's like, "You're not allowed to not do that. I've asked them for their attention." And then they come over and they want to give it to me, and I go, "No, fuck you. Like, you can't do that."
And I trained hard. I mean, I've got a large tattoo on my head pre-performance. So when I was 17, I was walking around London with a massive tattoo on my head, and I learned, that's a license for people to ask you things. And that's the license whether you unknowingly or not, you entered into that agreement. And so when I became a performer and the tattoo wasn't out as much, I have learned, I've got a brilliant invisibility cloak. I was doing Provincetown, very, very gay little town there, doing the game show. We'd finished the show and I was standing out front with Tiffany, my glamorous assistant. I had a hat on, all of my makeup gold still on. And a bunch of people who had just seen the show were talking to Tiffany going, "Oh my God, so that drag queen misbehaved. He's amazing." Wait, I am standing right next to him. And it's cultivated. Like, I have cultivated that ability. And I think it's because I love operations and I like hospitality as much as performing. And, there's a certain point where it's about the room and you just need to,
No, but Goudeau taught me a good showbiz secret, which is that when someone comes up to you and says, after your show, and says, "I saw you last year in Poughkeepsie and you were great at the state fair there too, and you weren't there," you just go, "Thank you."
I got the best paid gig of my life that way. I got an email, the ones where it's all lowercase, 2 sentences. "Hey, saw you in Miami, loved your act, would love to book you." I'm thinking, never been to Miami. Right back. "Thank you very much. Love to. What are the details?" It was in Kentucky. I mean, and I was sure it'll be insane amount of money. Plus, I'll need an O1 visa. No problem.
Was there a meat shower involved?
It happened. Bizarrely, it happened, and it was just a bunch of. It was a hotel chain that. Anyway, that Nothing ever comes from that email.
Right.
Yeah. Oh,
There it was. Mm. Yes.
I got a corporate gig. I got a corporate gig from a street show once. After the show in Vegas, guys came up to me and said, "Would you ever do like stand outside a trade show booth?" And I was like, "Oh, I love doing that. I'm happy to do that. When is your event?" And they said, "At 90 minutes." And I said, "Oh no, but really, when is it?" He said, "No, we have one, and we just realized at this trade show that all the other booths have entertainers, and we don't have one. Would you do it?" And I was like, "Yeah, let me go to my car and get a tie."
On every aspect, whether I'm selling popcorn or barking in a smaller venue or pulling a street show together from, I love it because it requires all you've got to do is be able to manipulate footfall, walk by. And that's great because I know how to do that. It's whether you're selling jeans, flyering, swallowing a sword, all the same thing. And nobody uses it here apart from.
It's a difficult skill. You know what I mean? And it's not something you realize until you try to do it. When I started doing street shows, I was working with 3 other jugglers, and we would do a juggling trick where we blocked off the entire sidewalk, and people would go in the street to get around us. They would rather die than sit and watch this juggling show. And at the end, you would walk out with your props and put them down, and people would gather. It's something about you that you have to learn to expose.
The people I feel sorriest for, because it's so annoying, is the fact that the magician is so hard.
Yeah.
You need a visual thing and it's just so hard because it's so loud, unnecessarily loud.
One of the best things I ever saw during a street show was in Venice Beach, California. The great Tony Vera, who used to do this act where he would the close of the act is he'd take an audience member on a folding chair and balance it on his chin, which is that's great. That's a great street show trick. But one time I saw him and he's doing the hat pitch at the end. People are coming up and tipping, and as they're kind of about done tipping, he's got this big hat full of money. And people are walking away, and he pulled out lighter fluid and he started squirting it on the money, and he started screaming, "You guys think I do this for the money? I do this because I love it. I don't need your money." And he's soaking it in lighter fluid. "I don't need any of this. This is an art form. I do this for the world, not for my bank account." And everybody has stopped, and they're turning around and going, "What? Is he going to set the 20s we just gave? I don't need any of your money. I don't need any of it." And then he pulls out a lighter and he goes, "It's broken. I'll do it later." And it was like, it's a great joke, but it was so beautiful because he didn't need to do it. The show was over. He just did it because he wanted to do one more fun thing for us.
Yeah.
It was really
That's
sweet.
Great. The Venice Beach. I love do you know Butterfly Man? Then was that?
Yeah. Very well. Yeah.
When I saw a clip of Robert in his heyday doing a low unicycle. Volunteer just getting on the unicycle.
Yeah.
And I've never seen it. It had cycled through so much that I had never seen it done as a slapstick routine.
Mm-hmm.
I'd only ever seen the sort of 5 beats that a generic show will use. Right. And watching him was like watching Buster Keaton. He
was great. Great.
This is what it is,
Yeah. Yeah. No, he was in street performing the same time as I was in San Francisco, so I knew him well.
Yeah,
I know he didn't actually invent this, but as far as I'm concerned, he invented being mean to kids on stage. Just the stuff that he he did a bit where he would he would drag kids up on he'd do that, but he would bring a kid up on stage and give him a foam sword, and he would have a foam sword, and they would just actually fight.
Yeah,
they just really hit each other as hard as they could for like 4 minutes, and people would just scream and laugh the whole time. The kid loved it, Oh.
Being mean to people, though, Gazzo's pretty good at it.
Yeah. Gazzo's the only person I've seen when he has a little kid that's talking during the show. He goes over to him with a plastic bag and says, "Here, it's a space helmet for you." And the kid's like, "I got to," I was crying, laughing in the audience.
You guys, I know, Jacob, you have your favorite question for people, and maybe we should go out on that. I'll say it for Jacob. Do you have any, in all of your varied history of performing, we like hearing hell gigs?
The worst show ever.
A real classic was, I used to be in a freak show called the Kamikaze Freak Show. We had a dwarf who would do heavy weightlifting from his dick. It was that But believe it or not,
But not very high.
it was
but very tasteful.
he'd actually stand on some blocks, so he had higher.
Oh, okay.
Fast forward 5 months, I had gotten a gig, which was the Hells Angels annual bash in the UK called the Bulldog Bash. I'd like to say that, not my noise. And so I go off to the Bulldog Bash, and I still have a romantic view of what Hells Angels can be, right? So I'm expecting, Hell's Easy Rider, right? You got a gig at Easy Rider. And I arrive at this dust bowl of a UK field, 5,000 Hells Angels. And then I come on, and at that point, I'm blonde, with a tattoo on my head, but still blonde, little fluffy pink thingy, cutesy. I come on to a Marilyn Monroe song, and I do, like it's a 15-minute cabaret from the early 2000s. And all I can hear is 5,000 people shouting, off, 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 off. Well, this is fun. And then I realized they're not talking about me, they're talking about my clothes. And I just thought, geez, fuck, and realized, similar to something Nick Nicholas did, where you turn people booing into a game and they want you to come back afterwards. But so off. And I was like, fuck it. All right, just once only. Take my top off and swallow my sword. None of you are ladies, but if you're a lady, my arms did not move. Did not move for the rest of the gig. So I was like, swallow the sword. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. And off we go. And about 2 years later, someone sent me a copy of a magazine called Razzle. And there is a picture of a topless sword swallower. Brilliant. Can't really tell it's me. No name. And it just says, hey, ladies, do try this at home. And that did have a big impact on me.
I had never considered just doing what the adversarial audience is telling you to do. Wow.
It felt like the easier option to ensure I got paid, as well as ending this fucker quickly. I mean, it's also interesting. I found as a comic, because I would always love to have been a stand-up, or a truth telly stand-up, but I'm not. But I need to have my box of tricks on stage with me for me to not do them. If I don't have them, I go and die.
Well, thank you for that story. Thank you so much. The great Misbehave. Thanks to Vinny, Jacob, Jason Goudeau, and the dead Nick Diffatte, and of course to Nikki from Neon Pineapple for all the tech work. It's been great. We're going out, as we do every week, on a quote by my good friend George Clinton. This will be good for you. Now, if your man ain't where it's at, now if he's as cold as that, just tell the square to get his hat. I'm qualified to satisfy. Yeah, oop. See you next week. Howdy, I'm Matt King. Thanks for watching Don't Everybody Leave With Me and My Pals. If enough of you subscribe and hit that bell for notifications, maybe we could get Steve Martin on to talk about his book. Do it.